Okay, so in number 8, we got a geometric progression. It's got the second term is a 12, and the sum to infinity is 54. So find the possible values for the first term. So they're letting us know there's more than one possibility, and they give us this information. So let's use the formulas we have available to us. The nth term is this formula, so the second term would be a times r to the n minus 1, or 2 minus 1 is 1, and that equals 12. Alright, so let's take a look at the other formula they gave us. The infinity formula, if I make it equal to 54, a is equal to 1 over 1 minus r, and then if I go ahead and multiply both sides by 1 minus r, I get a is equal to 54 minus 54r. Well, you notice this other guy's got an a, and this is equal to a. So if I replace that a with what it's equal to, 54 minus 54r, and then multiply it times the other r, well, now I've got an equation that only has one variable, and I can solve that. And it's going to turn out to be a quadratic, so I'm going to get everything on one side, and I'm going to make it equal to 0. I'm going to write down the quadratic formula, and then I'm going to use my calculator to find out what my r's could be. I go to polynomial 2, I plug in 54, negative 54, and 12, and I find out that the possibilities for r are 2/3 and 1/3. So if the r is a 2/3 and a 1/3, then that's why there's two possibilities for the first guy. Now all I got to do is take the second guy, instead of multiplying by 2/3, divide by 2/3. So 12 divided by 2/3 is going to give me a1, which that's going to turn out to be an 18. And if I take the 12 and divide by 1/3, which is the same thing as multiplying by 3, then the other possibility is that it's 36. So those are my two possibles for a1. Now for part B, we're switching gears, and it says that we've got this progression, and the nth term is p plus qn. And p and q are constants, and the sum of n terms is the sum of n terms. Okay, so let's go ahead and write down the formula for the sum of n terms, and let's go ahead and do the first and the last one. Alright, now in this case it's kind of tricky to understand, so let's pull it apart. The first term in this situation is p plus q times 1. The second term is p plus q times 2. You notice how for every term n is equal to that number. So I could keep on going, but the nth term is going to be p plus qn, which that's what they tell us, right? So if I go ahead and find the sum of the nth term, then I'm going to use this formula here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in what I can, the first and the last. Now the first term is going to be p plus q, we already figured that out, and the nth term, which is the last term, is p plus q times n. And see, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine some like terms. You'll notice I've got two p's, so this is going to be 1/2 n 2p plus qn plus q. And then that's the expression of the sum of the n terms. Now, you keep in mind we had another formula for the sum of n terms, and we could have used it also. It looks like this: 1/2 n 2a plus n minus 1 times d. In order to do that, we start off the same way. We put in our 1/2 n, and then 2 times the first term, and then we're going to put in a q for d, because d is the number we add each time. At any rate, either one of those would have been acceptable. To answer that the first part, that part 1, you didn't need to do both. All you had to do was do one. Now for part 2 of B, it says that the fourth term is 40 and the sixth term is 72, and they want us to find the values of P and Q. I'm going to use this first formula, and all I'm going to do is plug in 40, because that's the sum, and then I'm going to fill in n is 4 wherever I see an n. Now you'll notice I'm still going to have p's and q's, and that's because I'm going to end up with two equations. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to simplify this one. So all I've really done is replaced all the n's with a 4, and I've made it equal to 40. Let's go ahead and multiply 1/2 times 4 and get 2, and then I'm going to get 2p plus 4q plus q. Oh, that's silly, I can add those together, so let's go ahead and do that. 40 is equal to 2 times 2p plus 5q, and so then 40 is going to equal 4p plus 10q. Now that's our first equation. That's the sum has 4 terms. And so now I'm going to find the sum, or use the sum information with 6 terms. When there are 6 terms, and that's got a 72 as a sum, I'm going to fill in a 6 wherever I see an n in the formula. So 1/2 6, and then it's going to be 2p, and then this is going to be 6q plus q. And again, once again, I'm going to clean this up a little bit, and let's see, I've got 2p plus 7q, and then distribute the 3, so that's going to be 6p plus 21q. So there's my two equations. And what you notice, I've got p's and q's. I've got to have to eliminate one of those, and so I'm going to get rid of the p's. So I'm going to multiply this one by -2 and the other one by 3. And what's going to happen is my p terms are going to be 12p, and the other one's going to be -12p. And so then I'm going to, but the thing is, I can't just multiply the p's, I have to multiply everything by those numbers. So then I get these new equations, and when I add them straight down, I'm going to get -24 is equal to, these will cancel out, so then I get -12q, and that means q is going to equal 2. And then all I've got to do is plug in the q that equals 2 into one of the equations. There's one right there. So 40 equals 2 times 2p, and then in place of the q, I'm going to put a 2, so that's going to be plus 10. And see, now all I got to do is find out what p is, because it's going to be 4p plus 20, and I subtract 20 on both sides, and I find out that p is equal to 5. Now, that's the answer to this question right here. I do want to show you, though, that the calculator has the capability of solving systems of equations, especially when they're written in standard form. So let's take these two equations written in standard form before we multiply them by 2 or -2 and 3. And let's go menu A. We normally do the quadratic with this, menu A. We're going to do number 1, solve simultaneously. You'll notice how it's set up in standard form already. All I'm going to do is put in the coefficients, and then when I do that, I'm going to find out that x is equal to 5 and x is equal to 2, which are the answers I got when I did it by hand. So you can use that to check. All right, just want to make sure you knew that. Thanks for watching.